Good evening, y'all. I am so ridiculously excited today. I have a whole lot of things that we're going to be doing in the course of this broadcast. But first and foremost, I know that I said that we were going to do certain things on today, but stuff happens. And we're going to shift where we have been going, and we're going to insert some of the what I call my hometown favorites. And today I've got a brother for you that is nothing short of amazing. Back when I first met him, he was doing some other stuff for some other folk, and we're not going to even give them any credibility in this broadcast. But I'm going to tell you, look out for this brand, because what you're going to find is this brother has put some stuff together that is nothing short of ridiculous. And who am I talking about? I am talking about nothing more than Derrick Sier, who is, over the last 20 years, Derrick's passion for social and group dynamics has reached every area of his life, but shines brightest when it comes to mentorship. Using his BS in kinesiology, an MA in theological studies, community and culture experience in the education and corporate settings, Derrick has helped organizations recruit and equip mentors, implement and establish mentorship programs, and create safe spaces for mentors and their mentees to connect. If that wasn't enough, this brother has 2 books already out and a third one coming. When I tell you that he's doing some stuff, and I'm not talking about just where he's from, I'm talking about on a national platform. And just in case you thought I was joking, I had to go ahead and just show the brother in action. It gives me such great pleasure to bring to the stage, and we're going to chop it up for a little bit of time tonight. My good friend, my brother. Whew. When I tell you, I'm so glad you're
What
here.
an intro.
You,
My goodness.
hey,
I'm like, who's that dude he talking about? Who's that guy?
it's you. Now, the first thing that I have to do, and I do this with most of my guests, folks, who you are in your own words. Let me not take
Yeah.
the press clippings. Just introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Well, I use 3 components to normally introduce myself. One is I'm not even a fraction of the person that I am without my God. And so I want to say that I lead with faith in a lot of works that I do. One of the cool things about doing that is that I get to be an ambassador of a brand that I absolutely believe in. And that is being an ambassador of heaven, of the gospel. And so I love leading with that. I wouldn't be a fraction of who I am without my life. Number 2, I like to talk about being a community guy and a connector. And so my family allows me to travel and to be in spaces that allow me to connect and bring people together. In fact, my mission statement, my motto is helping others grow better together. So person of faith, a community and connector. And then the third thing that I love to talk about is being a mentor. Uh, I am a product of wisdom being passed down to me, of my dad and older men just kind of pouring into my life. And so I have become that for others. I love it so much that I kind of programs for people. I kind of help recruit and train those folks that want to be a part of this process as well. And then, as my bio said, I want to create spaces for those people to connect. And so, person of faith, I'm a connector and community guy, and I love the idea, the concept, the impact, the results, the value of mentorship.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, again, welcome. I'm gonna start with some easy questions, and then we're gonna get progressively up the mountain, if that's all right with you.
All
Of
right, here we
all the
go.
different
Absolutely.
subjects of all the different subjects that could come to your mind because of your background, why did you choose mentorship?
Yeah. Uh-oh. Was there a connection there? Is that my
I
end?
don't know. I'll say it again. Of all of the
Hello?
different
Are you
things,
there?
I'm here.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Okay. We've got
Sorry,
storms in
repeat
the
the
area,
question for me.
so
My bad.
I'm not the slightest bit surprised that there may be a glitch or two. But
Okay.
again, we take dominion over the prince of the power of the air and tell them to go kick rocks, because
Come
we're
on.
gonna do this.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Yeah.
do
Yeah. Yeah.
this. You have such a varied background. Why did you choose mentorship?
Yeah. Yeah. So oftentimes when I go to high schools and colleges, I have something that I call bucket talks, and I literally drag a bucket out on stage. And I just told this story most recently last weekend while I was in Tennessee. And my dad, when I was younger, he always had multiple jobs, and one of the jobs that he had was selling business. People would pull their cars up in our yard, in the driveway, parked out in the street. And my dad on Saturdays, Fridays and Saturdays, he would just detail cars. And one of the
Yep.
ways he did it is that while he was cleaning part of the car, he would have me sit on the bucket. It's kind of this little water bucket that you drag around and you dip your sponge in and you wash the car and you dip it. Well, when my dad was cleaning, I would sit on the bucket sometimes. And so we started calling these little bucket talks. And he would talk to me about, marriage and family and all these cool things. And one of the things that my dad talked to me a lot about was mentorship. In fact, he had something he had a big red truck, and my dad would drive around the community, pick kids up, and he would take them down to the community center, and they would in the big red truck with their clothes, and we wash clothes and we feed kids. He'd teach a lesson for the day or teach a sport or whatever it was. And then he'd take them back home. And we did this over the summer. We did this sometimes after school. And I remember my dad one day just telling me, he said, son, eventually you're going to be driving a big red truck and you're going to be doing what I'm doing today. And so I remember on my 16th driver's license in the summer, and I come outside and my dad is sitting in the passenger seat of the big red truck. And he said, all right, son, it's your turn. You know the route. You know the kids to pick up. You know how we do when we get down to the community center. We're going to do what we always done, except for you're in the driver's seat. And I've been doing it ever since. And so I just grew up under the tutelage, seeing a father up close, just kind of love on kids that were not his. He would navigate a community where he was well known. He used the community center as a hub and a resource to serve others. And he just kind of used what was at his disposal, whether it was information, whether it was a few dollars, whether it was his truck, whether it was his home, just kind of pour into young people. And so I just grew up seeing it. And I knew one day that I would be driving a big red truck and I'd be doing something similar to what my dad did when I was younger.
I tell you what, that visual is nothing short of awesome. And one of the things, especially when we're dealing with men, there's a disconnect often with fathers. Either
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they didn't know their dad was
Yeah.
in the home but not functioning, or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the dad was so busy working that they didn't have time to pour into them. For those brothers, so that they don't just
Yeah.
get disheartened, what would you tell them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I say there's the worst thing, the only thing worse than having a dad that is not in your life is to have a dad who actually is in your life and still not in your life. Right? I think
Mhm.
sometimes I hear young men talk about, I would have much rather my dad just not even been in the house than to be in the home and not connect with me. Oftentimes, proximity allows us to connect in a way that when you're away or when there's distance, there's just some things you miss out on. This is one of the things that I talk to our mentors about. I'm like, hey, when you come and you're connecting with your mentee, you got to actually be there because they have a bunch of people in their lives that they see all the time, but they're actually not there. And so, what does it look like for you to um, what does it look like for young men that have people around in their lives, but they actually aren't connecting with them? I think I say to those young men, like, hey, I know that you have people in your life and they may not have served you and connected with you well, but there's still an opportunity to do that. This is where mentees have to be on the hunt. I think oftentimes we want people to come find us and to come see us, and to come connect with us. But as a mentee, I think it's very important. And I tell them this separate from their mentors. And there's something that they see that they want, or an idea they want to flesh out, it's very important for them to go and find the person that is either doing it currently or on their pathway, on their way towards doing it. And so a lot of that responsibility is on the older folks. It's on the men, it's on the father, it's on the big brother, it's on the pastor to do those things. But the mentee has to do their job as well. So even though they may have people that were not in their lives, or they had people that were in their lives presently, but not actively fathering or mentoring, that's a problem, and that's an issue. But the older we get, we have to grasp onto some of that responsibility and start chasing people down who have what we want.
You absolutely are. You speak in truth, sir, and I mean you're speaking truth.
Yes, sir.
There are so many different aspects that I want to talk to you about. Um, it's not even funny because when you agreed to be on, I was like, oh my goodness, this brother
Mm,
is an entrepreneur. This brother is a community pastor. This brother is the big brother that you always wanted and never had. This brother
mm.
is that first cousin that you're like, cuzzo, come on, come on, come on. I, when I tell you that if folks were to meet you, if this were a virtual event where literally we could put on VR goggles and you could interact with folks real time, they would
Hmm.
understand what I'm talking about.
Mm.
But let's go ahead and go into that piece a little bit deeper. And by that, I mean, just talk to these folks about how you create presence. Because I've had several guests that have basically said, what you say to your mentors. You have to be in the moment. You have
Yeah.
to be single focused. And, again, in pastoral terms, you have to be present
Yeah.
in order
Yeah.
to engage with folks. And this
Yeah.
generation that's coming up, these Gen Alpha kids, that's the key. If you
Yeah.
can't be present, their whole thing is, what good are you gonna do to me?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
talk to us about that.
Yeah, there's a workshop that I created, that's really been picking up some steam. As a facilitator, as a speaker, it's very difficult sometimes to predict what's going to land with people. It's just almost like comedy or music. You never really know what's going to pop, what's going to hit, and so you just kind of create a bunch of it and see what resonates with the people. Well, I have this workshop that I created called Curiosity Plus Connection, and I think we have to establish connection, so that connection leads to relationship. But I think sometimes we forget about how connections are created. And so I believe the most significant connections that are created, that lead to healthy, thriving, vibrant relationships, comes through curiosity. You think about, in a dating situation, or if you're interviewing for a job, or you're pledging for Greek life, something that you're trying to pursue, you really get curious about it. You go online, you look for information, you try to find out things about the organization or the person or the group before you connect yourself to them. You do a little bit of research. I know I got some homegirls that they're older and they're dating now, and they use the World Wide Web. They use social media, they use TikTok,
Mhm.
Instagram, Facebook. Listen, before they connect with somebody, they're gonna find out whether he been married, divorced, he got kids, to visit, all these things. When I think about mentorship and I think about healthy, thriving relationships in that way, I believe that before we connect well and before we establish healthy, thriving relationships, we got to first be curious about the individual. And that curiosity is driven from within. What do they like? How do they tick? You can even, there's some common language that we can use that kind of gives us some insight as well. What's your Enneagram number? What city are you from? Are you Southern? Are you from the North? What's your age? What area did you grow up in? Are you an 80s baby? That means you're a hip hop head. Classic R&B. You know what I'm saying? Are you in education? What's your degree field? You know, all these different things that when we are genuinely level of connection, is a byproduct of that versus an external force that you feel like you got in order to do with it. What makes you curious as a litmus, as a bench for the level of connection that you'll have in the relationship that'll be a byproduct thereof?
All right, Derrick, I hate to do this to you, but I need you to redo that middle section because I don't know whether it's on my end, but you glitched really badly.
Okay. Yeah, we'll go back. We'll talk about the importance of that curiosity piece. I know that when we want to connect with people, with organizations, with groups, there's a level of research that we do, and I think a lot of that is driven by our intrinsic desire to connect with that thing. I know people that go to restaurants. If you're interested about a restaurant, what you do? You hop online. You look at reviews, you look at feedback, you look at the menu, you look at prices. When you go into a city, you type in top 10 things to do in Myrtle Beach, you know, in Charleston, South Carolina. Like, we do our research when we're genuinely and authentically curious about a thing. People are no different. When we want to know about people, then we let that natural curiosity kick in. And I think that's an indicator. It's a very important variable establishing healthy relationships.
I'm trying to see exactly what I can do to go ahead and boost this signal because you are giving such good information, and I'm going to be heartbroken if folks did not get all of it, which I believe they did.
I
But
don't know. Is it glitching on my end too?
I I don't know if it's you or
Let me see. Hold on one
again.
second. I'm on the okay.
We'll be fine.
I'm in the top room of this building.
And I didn't even ask you what state and city are you in?
Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, baby.
You're home. Good for you. Good for
I
you.
am. I am. Which, you know,
Excellent.
I could have easily said I'm somewhere else as much as I travel.
And that's the truth. And nobody would know but you. So, one of
I
the
know.
comments that has come up is that when I begin to talk to folks here, we just keep things at such that high educational level. And they're like, excuse me, uh, purpose disruptor, you're going to lose
Mm,
some of your younger audience because, yeah, they don't talk like that. They don't think like that. They don't reason like that. And of all of the folks that I said could be here to
mm,
speak to that issue, told you,
mm-hmm.
I got a laundry list of things. I said, this man right here, if there's anybody who can go ahead and code shift this
Yeah.
specifically for teens and younger, it's you. So you got the floor, sir. Tell it to us as you would tell it to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, they absolutely want to connect on a deeper level. In fact, I was watching a video the other day that said, you know, there have been these three major phases of development over time in the last 100 years. You had the Industrial Revolution, you had the Information Revolution. That's where technology started to advance, and then where the part that we're in now, kind of the social, include some of that time as well. But the people now that are coming into the workforce, They want to know more about the impact of an organization and a company on the world and in the community. They feel like they can go and get a job anywhere, and so working for you isn't necessarily a deal breaker, right? They feel like they can go get another job, and so I'll say that for these kids, they absolutely have ideas, opinions, they have feedback about things, and they want to share those things in the clothes that they wear, and the music they listen to, in their social platforms, and the education that they're getting. They want to share those things. We just have to figure out a way to tap into what they're interested in. We want them to speak knowledgeably, and we want them to articulate their involvement and their opinions about things that we're excited about and that we have interest in. But we have to tap into the stuff that they're interested in. That's where their curiosity comes into play. And the moment that we find out what they're interested in, once we find out the stuff that they talk about all the time, the games that they play, the movies that they watch, kind of the thinking that they've adopted as they come into their age of maturity. Once we figure out those things, then we'll get them talking. We also have to figure out a different way to present these timeless topics in a way that interests them as well. That goes with politics, that goes with work, that goes with education. We got to figure out a way to engage them in a way that interests them, and I think that's how we do it. It's very lazy, and it's very simple for us to just assume that they aren't intellectual and that they can't articulate, and just because they don't do it the way that we do it. They have a lot of things to say. We just have to provide them the platform, and we got to get them talking about the things that interest them the most.
That is outstanding. You made a comment and used a term that I need you to unpack for me. Timeless topics. You know,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
writing down all these things that I'm gonna steal from you. So when we start talking about timeless topics, what specifically are you thinking about, and what specifically would fit that for you?
Yeah, so I'm a community guy. I'm a relationship guy, and so talking about the importance of community is really important for us, and maybe even our parents. Community meant was more proximity and more geographical, right? It was more geographic. It was the people that our yards came up against, or the town that we lived in. But now community stretches around the world because of technology, and so you can have an online community, you can have a gaming community. People are linked together by the teams they support and the sports that they play. A
Mhm.
community means something different to them. And so when we say things like community, being community involved, we mean one thing, but they understand it differently. It's the same thing for family. Family structure for us may look a very different way than it does for this new generation now. Family to them means something completely different, or there's a variation or deviation of what family is. It includes a group of people that we may not include when we say that. And so when we think about these timeless things, connection, community, family, responsibility, honor, respect, honesty, like there's some timeless things that we want to tap into. They just look and sound and breathe differently for this generation. You say community, they say yeah. You say family, they say yeah. You say respect, you say yeah. You say education, they say yeah. But their yeah means something different. And so, how can
Right.
we tap into these timeless definitions, these timeless things, but understand what they mean when they say it, and so we can connect the two? Absolutely, community. Whatever community means for you means for me. Let's bridge a gap between those two understandings so that those timeless things can make it to the next generation. That the bridge just looks a different way. The avenue just looks a different way than it looks from our parents to us, from us to them. The concepts are the same, but timeless. They just look a little differently.
That makes perfect sense. Which actually opens up again another. You are a dream guest. I'm just telling you that you're the dream guest. So as we open up this this idea of building bridges from our elders to us, and from us to our peers, and us
Mhm.
to the next generation, what are the must-haves of mentoring?
Yeah, must-haves. Let's see if I can break it down to three. I would say we gotta be willing to share our lived experiences. I think sometimes younger people see us and they feel like we got it together. But our lived experiences opens up a conversation to error and getting it wrong and stumbling and mistakes that they feel like the older generation they don't share. And so I think opening up to our lived experiences to the previous generation or the next generation is going to be really, really important. I think there's a level of sacrifice that we are going to have to make in order to engage with them. I think sometimes the mentee or the younger people feel like they're giving up a lot in order to connect with us. But I think that we have to let them know the sacrifices we've made and what we're giving up in order to connect with them. I was talking to my wife about this. I was like, we need to start talking to our kids a bit more about money. We need to talk to our kids a little bit more about our sacrifice on their behalf because I don't know that they get what what it takes in order for them to get where they are. And so I think a lot of times the young people feel like they're doing it on their own, or the older people don't understand. And so I think if we open up about our lived experience, if we talk about the sacrifice that it takes in order to for them to get here, in order for us to get where we are, I think another must-have of mentoring is showing up. I think that's underrated. And when I talk to mentors all the time, they tell me what's the best thing that I can do. I say, well, the first thing you can do, which is also the best thing, is just show up. I think we want
Mhm.
to show up in a certain way and we want to show up with the answers and we want to show up being perfect. But I think just showing up means a lot. When you say you're going to show up on Tuesday at 1 and you do it, you're already head and shoulders above the rest. Because oftentimes these young people, they feel isolated, they feel let down, and they feel disappointed. And they really just want people to show up. I could go down a list of when you show up, be present, show up and listen without judgment, show up and bring something, some advice, something like bring something to the table. Like I can go down those, but I think lived experience is really important. That's going to be an avenue through which you connect. I think talking about sacrifice and discipline, that's really important. And I think just showing up, like that gets you in the door. If you continue to show up, I think they'll open up and let you know what they need, and they'll also be more willing to connect. Showing up also it breeds room for that proximity piece, but also that consistency as well. Like that proximity and consistency is really, really important. There's just some things you learn about people about being around them often. You don't have to come with a word. You ain't got to come with, like, but I think just being around people and doing it often, you get access that other people won't get. And so, lived experience, talking about the sacrifice that it takes in order for you to get here and for them to get somewhere else. And I think just showing up, I think those are three components. Those are three must haves in mentoring. But I could list 5 or 6 other ones as well.
I'm sure you could. Lord knows, I'm sure you could.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So let's get into the problems of men and mentorship.
Yeah.
Eh, We, as we were talking sort of before we went live, we live by a solo code,
Mm-hmm.
which often says,
Mm.
I can do it by myself. I don't need any help.
Yeah, yeah.
Add pride and arrogance to that, and I have,
Mm-hmm.
whether I succeed or whether I fail, at
Yeah.
least I tried.
Mm.
Add failure as a constant to that, and you have, I'm afraid to try,
Yeah.
so I'm just going to sit here
Mm-hmm.
by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to reach out to anybody. I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
ask anybody for help. I'm
Yeah,
not going to do anything. I'm just going to be here.
brother. Yeah, that complacency is a killer.
Yes, sir.
That being in between, wanting to try but being afraid to fail. That's that fear based positioning of like I have all these ideas. That's why you. So I heard this where they said richest place in the world is the grave. You get all these people
Absolutely.
that all these ideas, all this potential, all this stuff they wanted to do, but they get stuck in between this desire to succeed and this fear of failure. And so they end up doing nothing. And nothing looks differently for different people. Everybody feels like nothing is this apathetic place of not caring. But I think people that get stuck in nothing actually care. They just don't allow they don't allow the potential of success and the fear of failure to move them. I said this to a group one day. I said running towards something and running away looks the same from the outside. I'm gonna say that one more time. Running towards something and running away from another looks the same from the outside. The only difference is the intention and the motive, right? If somebody saw me running across the Serengeti and they say, "Hey, look, it's a lion behind him," some people are gonna say, "Oh, he's running from the lion." Somebody else is gonna say, "Oh, he's running towards safety." I think this is the half glass, half full perspective. But whatever it is, I think something has to motivate us to move, and that looks differently for everybody else. And so I think it's really important when you have these men, and I'm not even gonna call them young men, when you have these men that have they've slid into this places where they're like, you know what, I'm not gonna do anything. That I'm not gonna do anything could be working a full-time job, kids, going to church. These people that you feel like are thriving and succeeding, you don't know whether or not they're complacent until you get into them. Complacency looks different from a lot. Complacency also looks like not being a partner, not being a present father, not having work, right? But we got to figure out like what moves a person, and then what success and complacency looks like for them. Because oftentimes from the outside, it could be somebody that is not married, not kid, not working, but be motivated. And so learn, and we have to use our connections and access a relationship to figure out what that looks like for other people.
Talk to us about fear, specifically men and fear of intimacy.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. I was talking to a group of high schoolers, and we were talking about opening up and being vulnerable and being honest. And they said it's so hard to do. These are high school young men, keep in mind. They said it's so hard to do because people use that vulnerability against us. It's the fear of me telling you something and you using it against me, or I tell you something and you use that to tear me down or change how you see me. And so it's easier to control the way you see me by not opening up and being intimate and being vulnerable in this situation. You can literally ask me if I need help, and everything on the inside is saying yes, I need help. But what comes out of my mouth is I'm good. You can tell me, am I okay? And on the inside, I'm not. I'm dying. I'm melting away. I'm being stripped away. I want to scream. I want to yell. But what comes out is I'm the fear
Mm.
opening up and being intimate with you. It changes your perception of me. It admits that I don't have the answer. It admits I don't know what it is. It admits that I need help. And a lot of times, knowing the answer, being able to survive on our own, being able to thrive isolated, we've attached that to manhood and not vulnerability, right? We say that men have to know, men have to do, men have to have a grasp on things, and that's not always the case. In fact, if you talk to an old head, he'll tell you, I didn't know what was going on, but I just did it trying to figure it out, or I had to ask some people about it. But old heads will tell you on the back end. I just wish we can get that information on this end. The second thing of fear that I think is important to note is that sometimes we fear that it'll actually be everything I thought it was going to be, and we have to let go of that old notion of intimacy, right? Sometimes we find comfort in the trauma that we know instead of being curious and push forward about a success that we don't know. I'll say that again. Sometimes people settle for the trauma that they do know versus the potential of the success that they don't know. And so my dad told me this a long time ago. He said, son, don't get a new car if you can't maintain it. And so for a long time in my life, I was afraid of getting new things because the fear of being able to keep them or maintain them prevented me from doing it, right? Instead of getting the big house or in knowing that the Lord will provide and that my skill set will provide that, I settled for something that I knew I could maintain. I did that with the car. I do that with relationships. I do that with seeing, with travel. Like I have to fight through the fear of actually getting what I want, because now that I got it, I'm either have to let go of that old mindset that was comfortable for me because I've been walking around with it so long, or now that I'm there, I got to maintain it. I got to maintain it. This is another reason why you see people who gain popularity, who gain money, they still operate with this poverty mentality. They would much rather operate in a mentality that they're familiar with versus stepping into investments, stocks, bonds, IRAs. Like that's intimidating. And so they get all this money that can generate this generational wealth, this what they've been striving for. And because they're afraid of it, they're like, you know what, let me just be hood rich. Let me go get these shoes, you know what I'm saying? Let me get this car. And so a lot of times that fear, it impacts our ability to stretch and grow and expand. It also challenges our willingness to admit that we don't know, because in that don't know comes from some vulnerability and intimacy you're talking about.
I'll tell you, you're blowing my mind because as most know and some others don't know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And as such, we are literally
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
having these conversations around the country about how is your mental health? Well, when you start talking to people of color about their mental health, you're opening up something that not only do they not want to talk about, but has been taboo in our communities for generations on top of
mm-hmm,
generations. And you said something which I just loved is like, we would rather have our known trauma versus the potential of success that they don't know. When you look at that through the lens
mm-hmm,
of Mental Health Awareness Month, I know for me, this month has always been a wonderful self check. Mason, how are you doing? How's your mind? Are you taking care of your
mm-hmm,
mind?
mm-hmm,
Are you doing the things that you need to do
mm-hmm,
so that
mm-hmm,
you can have people praying for you? Are you spending time with a
mm-hmm,
professional so that you can get your couch time in, so that you can unload some of the things that have been
mm-hmm.
plaguing you for quite some time? Are you dealing with
Yeah,
relationships
yeah.
that may be estranged or actually just not in a good place? Are you saying to yourself, self,
Mm-hmm,
as much as I would want to, I have to understand that things in my mind are not going to become right unless I begin to work on them like anything else. It's not that there is no
yeah, do the
magic
work.
wand that I can wave and my
Mm-hmm.
mental's gonna be just all right. It's not going to happen. So,
Yeah,
specifically with
yeah.
men and specifically growing up, when you started talking about somebody's mental health, you had two buckets:
Mm-hmm,
they're okay or they're crazy.
mm-hmm.
Those were the only
Yeah.
buckets that we had. We we didn't have a bucket
Yeah,
that
yeah.
said they'll be fine with some counseling. We didn't have the bucket that said
Mm-hmm,
they'll be fine, but because of a chemical imbalance, they need some medication. We didn't say they'll be fine
mm.
if they had some prayer, some couch time, and some medication. We didn't talk about that.
Come on, all three.
We,
Right,
we, we,
right.
we, we didn't talk about any of that. And so every
Mm-hmm,
family reunion, you would show up and say, don't mind fill in the blank, he's not all there. Or
He's
he's a
special.
little touched.
Mm-hmm,
Special.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that we do ourselves a disservice because honestly, it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially today, right? With all of our access to information, and it's like I think we're in an era now where we have the luxury of learning about how we feel in our bodies and how we're processing. So when you get in a survival mode, then talking about your feelings, was a luxury that you could afford, because you can feel the things, but then you still got to go, deal with it. There was no apparent alternative, but I think we're in an age now where information is vital. We have the opportunity to step back and look at other people and how health and how medicine and how professionals and how science and how those things um, partnered, or how we can collaborate with those professions in that industry in an attempt to improve how we think and feel. We don't just have to pray. I encourage everybody pray, meditate. I encourage that is very vital to my mental and spiritual health. But so is medicine. So is medicine, and so is science. It's healthy relationships and friendships, and so is that couch. Something that is there's something to be said about people who will explore everything in order to ensure that they are the most healthy that they can be. And I think oftentimes we feel like there's only been a narrow pathway towards tomorrow, and that's to suck it up, stop complaining. But I think there's a different way for us to get to tomorrow. In fact, we're seeing that more people are exploring those alternative avenues, and they're finding themselves addressing some issues that they've had over time. They're finding themselves getting some of that cultural, some of that social, some of that spiritual baggage and trauma that they've had to work through or carry.
Yep.
Person that will pull away and say no is complete cynicism. They won't carry on that family lineage that has weighed them down and kept them from being as forward and progressive that they want to be. I think there's a lot of stuff that people are working through nowadays.
And I think you are absolutely correct, which actually leads me to another area in this, which is families of color often live by the motto, what happens in this house stays in this house. And when you live by that motto, you are feeding this trauma bed because the
Yeah,
dysfunction you had
yeah.
growing up is going to be the trauma that you have to now get rid of when you're older. And if you don't know that
Mm-hmm.
that's normal and that's not healthy and that's not the way that families actually operate, all you're going to do is take that same family motto. And when you have a family, what you going to tell your kids? What happens
Mm-hmm.
in this house stays in this house. I don't want you talking to your friends. I don't want you
Mm.
talking to the Joneses down the street. I don't want you bringing this up at church. Whatever happens in here, that's for us. That's not for anybody else. Nobody needs to know
Mm-hmm.
our business.
Mm-hmm.
And then the
Woo.
cycle begins again.
Mm-hmm.
Looking for wisdom, sir. Looking for wisdom. What you got?
Yeah, and we take that mentality, and not only right, because it's not like it's that type of thinking. It's isolated. Just family as a whole. We that as friends. We do it as partners. We do it. We carry that into communities. I've heard a lot of people talk about some of the conversations that the African American community are having on public platforms. Right? They're like, "Hey, that's family business." Like we don't discuss those things at the Oscars. We don't do that on MTV. We keep it inside the community, And I think that's it, it turns a bit toxic when we start to isolate ourselves to keep secrets that need to be exposed, that behaviors and encounters that need to be exposed. I understand wanting to work on things. I understand the grace that we extend to one another that allows us to improve or get better in an area, but that's not the type of covering that we're talking about. That's not the type of privacy and isolation we're talking about. We're talking about because it's pride involved, and we don't want to get better. We want to do something that we're ashamed of. There's lots of guilt normally attached to that request of what happens in here stays in here. And so we've carried that. We've carried that into our relationships as adults. We've carried that into the homes that we create as adults. We carry that to our romantic relationships. And I often think that sometimes maybe the best thing to do is bring somebody else in that is impartial. So the couch comes in. I think that's where a mentor comes in and can let you know that, hey, that's not normal, or maybe, hey, that's not healthy, or even ask you questions like, do you want to experience that, or do you find it productive? And so, yeah, when we create those habits, that's another one that I believe we should examine again as far as what happens here stays here. I think we should that. Let's ask somebody else. My wife and I would do that sometimes. We'll like ask another couple, like, "Hey, is that normal?" I'll ask another dad, like that has a daughter, like, "Hey, my wife has friends that has sons. We have another issue, like, hey, is this normal?" I think we should normalize asking other people what's normal. Come on, quote me on that one. We should normalize asking other people what's normal, because I think that can get to a different perspective on something that we've been stuck in the whole time.
That's a great quote. Yeah, that's a great quote. So, with the time that we have remaining, I'm going to ask you a very loaded question, and I'm going to sit back and I'm going to let you teach,
Okay.
because you are one of the best teachers I know of.
All right. All right.
And I'm gonna give you my
Mm,
this platform. I'm gonna give you this floor, and I'm gonna let you flow. Um,
okay.
and
Okay.
here's the setup. Here's the setup. We've already talked about men preferring to walk alone, even though Jesus
Mhm.
gave us a beautiful example that you need to go out by pairs. The military was built
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
the edict that you should have somebody of advanced knowledge in the midst of those who are absolutely new, so that they can then impart
Hmm.
their knowledge to that group and everybody grows together while the team grows.
Yeah.
These messages are falling on deaf ears with men.
Mm,
And it doesn't matter whether we are talking about white men, black men, Asian men, Latinx men, it doesn't
mhm.
matter. Men don't necessarily
Yeah.
want to hear that. They still want to say that
Yeah.
I'm the captain of this ship, and if I put it in the rocks, it's still my ship to put in the rocks. I'm calling
Yeah.
on all that is within you and your mentoring prowess. With the time that we have left, go ahead and give
Yeah.
us that wisdom.
Yeah. One of my favorite books, since there is wisdom in wise counsel. It says that three um, braided cord is not easily broken. It gives us an example of having men over 50, men over the groups of 50, men over groups of 10, men over groups of 100. It gives us an example of having leadership alongside leadership. Shows that there was a collective of men that operate together, that go out and support each other. Like we've been given examples and examples and examples in one of my favorite books, and I think that what happens with men today is that maybe three things. things that I can think of just right off the top of my head. One, it forces us to admit we don't know, which looking in that mirror is hard sometimes because we're trying hard and we're trying to lead. But looking in that mirror sometimes is tough because when we look in that mirror, instead of seeing everything that we do know and seeing all of our effort and all of our attempts, we see all of our shortcomings and all of our failures, our inadequacies. So standing and looking at our manhood, it's easy to look away and to shun that reflection and just keep your head down and go. So having to slow down and admit that we don't know sometimes requires a level of honesty and vulnerability that we don't have. Number two, I think it's the slow down part. Oftentimes, men associate with their character, with their identity, is production. And if we aren't out making money, making moves, being productive, then who are we to call ourselves a man? The same book said, men don't work, you don't eat. I understand that idea, but we also combine that work and eat idea or concept with rest and rejuvenation. I think it's very important for us to be able to slow down. Number three, I think we know that we have people relying on us. Mama relying on us, daddy, auntie, uncle. We got siblings relying on us. And so that weight that we carry is pretty tough. And so having that opportunity to slow down, like I said earlier, is a luxury. I want to make sure that when men uh, think about this idea, when they hear this idea, when they think about this idea of mentorship and being vulnerable and surrounding themselves with community, I don't want them to think of it being like therapy. Like I got to tap into my soft side, my feminine side, even though there's some language that I probably would use because I think that we are dynamic in that way and we have components of all those things in us. I want them to think about this when we are developing in other areas. When I talk to high schoolers, I'm saying you looked at somebody, you have a favorite player. Whether you're a basketball player, when I ask you who your favorite player is, you got that person in mind. If you are a football player and I say, who's your favorite person? That you have a person in your favorite position person. If you're an actor and I say, who's your favorite actor? If you're a comedian, I say, who's your favorite comedian? If you're a cook and I say, who's your favorite chef? If you're a developer and I ask, who's your favorite? I think we all look up somewhere to someone for direction and inspiration. As a man, I would say, who's your favorite father? Who's your favorite father figure? Who's your favorite? Who did you look towards to see that? And I think oftentimes we don't have that person there. Whew, this is good. This is good. We have our favorite DJ. We have our favorite restaurant. We have our favorite chef. We have our favorite football player, our favorite rapper, our favorite actor. We have a favorite of those. But when I ask you, who's the man that you look up to that's not an industry or an interest professional, oftentimes I get no one. When I ask them that, I get no one. Very rarely do I have people that can just rattle off men that help them in a lot of different areas, help them be good husbands, help them be good fathers, good neighbors, good men of God. Like I can count on one hand how many times I can ask a new person, that somebody I don't know, and they're able to rattle that off. So why is it the case? Well, I think it's because we find value in production and doing and not existing. Yeah, I think coming into this element of just being in certain places, I think it's lost on, and you said on deaf ear of men. It's like, hey, yo, listen, you were created, you were put here for a purpose, and pursuing that purpose is your number one thing. Everything else are designations or beneficiaries of you becoming that thing. You being honest, you being vulnerable, being self-aware, the ability to be transparent and intimate in multiple situations and not just physical. I think those are things that allow us to be good professionals, to be good fathers. The core of who we are, to figure out what that thing is. For me, it's, and so I filter everything through the idea of relationship and connection that allows me to step in multiple spaces and be good and be legit. Uh, because I'm in my purpose and my passion, and everything benefits from me being able to operate in that. Am I perfect? I am not. But that's a goal and focus of mine, is to become good in those areas so that everybody that's attached to me will benefit from. I think we have a lot of people, they're attempting to be productive to those things. I want us to understand that if understand first before we try to go out and be productive and accomplish and acquire, that if we realize we are what we've been created to be, like what's the core of us, none of those things will ever bring us about passion or satisfaction. We'll find ourselves with a lot of money and being dissatisfied, or surrounded by a lot of people and being lonely. One of the reasons I think for us understanding what we've been created to be or identifying those core components of us is because that means I can do less and feel more satisfied. And so the journey of mentorship is trying to who you are, what makes you tick, what makes you thrive, what makes you light on fire and come alive on the inside, and then how can we find fulfillment by going out and finding avenues to put that gift and that those talents and to put those core values on display. It's a long way of saying it. And I'm thinking right now, I'm like, man, I should have just kind of wrapped it up in a quicker way. But I think one of the reasons we're unable to receive that intimacy and that the vulnerability and that honesty and that transparency with others is because we don't know who we are. I have a friend right now, and this will be the last thing I say. He says uh, that there's this no Diddy. These young men walk around, no Diddy, no Diddy. They're saying these things and they're trying to overcompensate by saying, hey, I love you, but I'm not this. Hey, like, I appreciate you, but I'm not this. And it's like, I told my friends, I said, I'm going to say, I love you, period. You know who I am. You've known me for years. I don't need to qualify it.
You
So
don't.
I'm going to ask for help, period. I'm going to say, I'm hurting, period. Hey, I'm lonely, period. And I don't have to qualify, like I'm good, you know what I'm saying? I'm, whatever, but I am kind of lonely, you know what I'm saying? But so, I don't have to qualify it. I don't have to be over masculine. I don't have to be overly man. I don't have to be who Cheese wants to say, I need help. I don't understand. I don't know. I'm lonely. I'm feeling vulnerable. Let me be transparent with you. I should be able to say, as a human, as a man, I am this, period, no qualifier, without feeling like I'm less than, or I have to manage yours by reframing or phrasing it in a way that makes you feel comfortable about your situation. I'm hurt. I'm lonely. You know what I'm saying? I feel inadequate right now. I'm not being the best man I can be. I'm not being the best father I can be. I'm not being the best money, addictions. I'm struggling. I should be able to say, especially people that I feel like I know, love, and care about me, and not provide any qualifiers to change or try to manage your expectation of me. I'm a man all on my own. I know what God created me to be, and I'm struggling. Can you help?
Woo, sir. That is exactly where we need to be when we actually are comfortable enough with our transparency that we can
Mm-hmm.
say, I'm broken,
Yeah.
and not have to go into the backstory and not have to hawk a book talking about the
Mm-hmm.
28 different phases and the 33 different steps and the 14
Mm-hmm.
different product. No, what I need, let's go grab some wings and a cold drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's go to the
Yeah.
movies. Let's go shoot some pool. I just need a change of scenery and somebody to talk to. When we can get to that
Yeah.
level of
Yeah.
transparency, when we can get to that level of being okay with ourselves,
Mm.
change is going to
Mm.
come. Change is going to come. But I think that
Listen.
summarizing the one thing that
Listen.
you said. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was just thinking, like I'm a Bible guy, and I just think about some of the most powerful, transformational stories came when people was just like help, right? It's like sitting on the side of the road, like like when the men lowered their friend, the friend couldn't even walk; he had to be carried by his homeboys. They climbed the top of the broke through the roof, lowered him down. Like some of these powerful and transformative stories that we've heard. And when people just literally give up and they say, I can't do it. I need help. Can you help? Can you put me in the pool and stir the waters? Can you help me? Like they say, silver and gold I have not, but what I have I give unto thee. When people just literally give over and they say, listen, I've been trying to do it. Woman with the issue of blood. She said, listen, I done spent all my money. I done talked to all the doctors. If I can just get close and you know what I'm saying? Like we have these stories of people that are just like, if you can just get to that point where you can just say, I need help. Put all your cards on the table, lay it all down. We say it in church all the time. I remember being the altar call, the deacon standing down in a missionary Baptist church saying, come to Jesus. Come to Jesus. Come to Jesus. Just he would say, is there one? He would just stand there and he was literally saying, is there somebody that will say they don't have it? They don't understand it. They can't figure out a way. You done try. Come on, them deacons say you done tried everything you knew to try. You done called your best friend, no answer. You done went to the doctor, no answer. You done called mama, all she got is hugs and castor oil. Like there's only so many things that you can do before you got to get to the moment and be like, you know what? I done tried everything but this. Let me be vulnerable because I done tried everything else. Hey man, I'm struggling, bro. Hey man, I done looked at every TikTok. I done scrolled every Instagram feed. I've been on Google Chat GPT. I done did all. And who would have thought that I would be able to make the most ground by calling a friend and asking, bruh.
That's the truth. And you did my heart wonderful because you led this whole thing out with what I call the Jethro imperative, where Jethro looked at Moses and told him, what you doing is not good. Because if you keep this up, you are going to be burnt up and burnt out.
Bruh.
There's people with you.
Mm.
Let me tell you, as the
Yeah.
Sheik of Midian, the way to organize and lead a people. Woo! That's a whole other subject for another
Yeah. Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
It's another subject.
My goodness. My goodness.
Derrick, time flies when you're having fun, and I cannot believe this has gone so quickly. So, thank you again for your time, your attention. You're the goods, man. You are absolutely the goods, and I cannot. I
I
cannot
appreciate it,
thank
Doc.
you enough for the wisdom that you brought to this platform. And as I've said for a few folks, not for everybody, but for a few folks, a little bit down this road, if I call you back and ask you to come back again, would you be willing? Let's see if you heard me or if we glitched out audio wise again, because I think he's a little frozen.
Absolutely. Please do.
Perfect. That's what I wanted to hear. All right. I'm going to send you to the green room while I wrap up, and I'll be back with you in just a second. Woo! When I tell you, I told y'all you did not want to miss this one. I told you didn't want to miss this. I would be remiss if I did not tell you to join the shift movement. Go ahead out to purposerefinedbyfire.com. Go on down to the end of that particular information page and click the join now. And we'll be more than happy to go ahead and get you signed up. You'll get emails, you'll get other information, you'll get timely tips, and there are a couple of offers that are also out there for you. So don't forget about that. Until next week, and actually, I'm sorry, coming up right now, we're going to go ahead with the shift into your purpose broadcast, which is a little bit later tonight with Darius J, because we have to deal with just timing. We just have to get some stuff. So we're going to explain a little bit more about that in just a minute. So stay tuned. Go refresh your beverage. Use the restroom if you have to, because this is the double decker on tonight. So thanks again for joining us. on Mason Mondays. And I know that you're going to be doing the things that have been purposed for you in your life. Stay tuned.
We all want to be happy, but the majority of us have no idea what to do. See, the Japanese have a concept called ikigai, which roughly translates into a reason for being. You need to have a purpose for being here. But this is easier said than done because there are 4 components that you need to check off in order to achieve ikigai. Now, the interesting thing about this Japanese formula is that you can tell where you are in life and what you need to work on by looking at the components you have so far. If all you have is something that you love and are good at, then you have what's called a passion. On the other hand, if you have something that you love and you can see how the world needs it, then you have what's called a mission. Now, if you're someone who has something you get paid well for and are good at, then you have what most people in the world have, which is a profession. And finally, if you get paid well and it's something that you know can help the world, then you have what's called a vocation. You need to be spending your time doing something that you love, that you can get better at, that pays well, and that the world needs. Without all 4, you will always feel like you're missing something inside of you.
Follow us for more helpful tips.